compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, EI 1975, CH 231. It was properly noticed and has been posted and certified by the clerk. Roll call.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Hoppercamp?
Here.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Gulati?
Here. And if you will join me in a salute to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this meeting is for the 2024 municipal budget discussion. You have in front of you the document with all of the changes. I believe that this came from our auditor, Ray, who's here this evening. We also have our CFO, Lorraine, here. So, would you like to start off from where we ended last time, or do you want to start off from the discussions in reference to the emails that have been going back and forth?
Good. We'll just do the email real quick. Go on from there. However you want to do it.
I don't know what Ray
Ray
made up
wants
for
to do it,
changes, but
talk, or-
I made up some changes from the 226 meeting and the 3-5 meeting. Was this okay to give out?
Hmm.
What, okay. This, the new ones, the changes that were made because I had something wrong in the budget, like investment interest or items that we got a new state aid figure that I had adjusted for. And there were also the changes that have been agreed upon at the last two budget sessions that we had. So we had a,
Lorraine, does this incorporate the 5%? Is that what you did?
this incorporates
Yeah,
the 5% that was agreed to, the bulk from LoSAP. The changes on the revenue side were investment interest. When the auditors went through all of our postings for the year in preparation of the annual financial statement, the unaudited financial statement, they found some items that have been posted to interest that were not interest. That so with that correction, we had to reduce the amount that we anticipated for investment interest. Energy receipts, we got a little bit more money out of the state for that. Construction fees, we were able to glean a little bit more from cell tower, a little bit more pilot revenue, a little bit more. All of those changes enabled us to drop the amount to be raised by taxation, the levy that we're asking the taxpayers to pay. That enabled us to drop it from 13,794,000 to 13,420,000. That equated to, I guess the consensus was at the last meeting on the 5th that the increase was to be less than $10, and that brought us to $9.90 on the average house. The other changes on the other side are the appropriation changes. I don't think any of these were auditor adjustments. I think they were all from the 5% change and the new hire decreases where the additional ACO is taken out. The 2 additions for buildings and grounds were taken out. Again, LoSAP with a 25,000. So you can see the amount of the changes in the far right-hand column. That, along with the prior gap that we had going into the last budget session, were made up. So we had a decrease overall for revenue and appropriations for 342,000. There were some additional changes that were requested. That involved the Environmental Commission, a couple of line items in the Environmental Commission in celebration, and the ambulance squad contribution.
So in the emails that we did receive to move the budget down from $9, I believe, to lower than $9, the items that are now asking to be removed from the budget are things that the public actually utilizes. And I think before you remove those, you should really consider that, because celebration of events are your parades and your public things, not to mention environmental. We do the 2 cleanup days. We have different events that happen with environmental. And I would just ask that you reconsider doing those specific line items aside from the ambulance squad. The ambulance squad is something that every resident in this borough, if they pick up the phone and call 911, the ambulance is going to come out. I was under the impression from the last meeting that we were safe or comfortable with doing a $10 tax increase, which was actually only a $9.90 increase. And now we're trying to get that to go even lower. That difference actually is 83 cents a month if you change and remove the ambulance deduction, the celebration of events, and the environmental numbers. I don't think that the 83 cents a month is that much when it comes to keeping it at $9.90 as opposed to trying to make it lower.
Can I ask who, Lorraine, this is not a question for you. Can I ask who recommended to take any more money away from the ambulance department?
I started it. And
I looked at it, we give them 40,000 every year.
Do you
Yep.
guys know what that cost covers? Did you attend any of the meetings last year as
Nope.
liaison?
nope. And I'll tell you that the ambulance squad does as good a job as they can in this town. Have nothing against the ambulance squad. They are a standalone company. We do not, they are not, we're not committed to them anything. A long time ago, before my time, they decided to give them $40,000 a year. In addition to that, they also get free gasoline for the entire year, every year. We would fully fund them if they were not a standalone company, but they are a standalone company. And with that came in the fact that they did soft billing. So they bill our residents. So on one hand, if you use their services, you're paying for it. On the other hand, whether you use them or not, and even when you do use them, you have to pay for the tax for that purpose for this 40,000. The mere fact that they keep wanting to have more money for their training, et cetera, I don't have a normal inkling one way or the other than we've asked several times for their money, what they're spending money. We've never gotten a straight answer. We've seen their revenue, their Excel sheets, and they're incorrect. They reflected on one occasion that they've gotten 80,000 from us. It never happened. So we don't have any faith in their record keeping, unfortunately. So I would say before we give them another penny, we know exactly where our money's going. And that's my stance. Anybody else? Sure.
So that $4,800 would actually pay for 2 additional volunteer EMTs
Correct.
to go through EMT school.
Mhm.
The ambulance department is they run half, they're licensed, so they run half paid and half unpaid. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. they're paid, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. they're volunteer.
Right.
Okay. They soft bill, which actually saves our residents $350,000 a year. Because
That cost.
that they eat that cost by going to soft billing and not hard billing. I had an ambulance ride last August.
Mhm.
I called 911, they showed up at my house. It was BLS, basic life support. I thought I was having a stroke and I needed to go to the hospital.
Mhm.
I had to pay Atlantic Health $3,500 for an ambulance ride, which would have been, if the ambulance department had billed me that, they would have had to write off.
Mhm.
So, and I got slammed, I had to pay it. They save our residents a lot of money and they eat the costs. So they could go out to hard billing, which would affect our residents and their pockets, because going to collections is serious. So I feel like $4,800 so that we could train 2 more EMTs, which they're down because of the pandemic, because nobody was going to EMT school during the pandemic because everything was shut down. We're already down. Now we're offering to train 2 EMTs to respond to our residents and save them $350,000.
Right, and that 40,000 doesn't even cover.
I don't
the
even
full
know if it
vehicle
covers,
insurance.
yeah.
Like, you have to add on liability insurance, there's so many added costs onto that I wouldn't risk the health of our residents over that many thousands of
Over
dollars.
$4,800.
Why won't they be honest about their billing?
Did you go to a meeting last year?
No,
Did
but
you
I'm
pick-
not,
did you send
I'm
them an
not,
email?
I'm sorry.
Did you email them?
No,
Did you pick up the phone to call them?
no, why?
So who's at fault for not doing their due diligence? I picked up the phone and I called the captain of the ambulance squad and I got my answers. These are tough decisions we
You
have to
seen the
make.
book?
No, I had a phone call. I had a question, so I went to the source, to the people who would have the information to educate myself as a new council
And
person.
they gave you the information.
I was given the information because I asked the question.
But you didn't,
But you didn't get the
you
books.
don't know where they're spending your money.
I have more information to myself than you do, and you had one year on council as their liaison. I'm putting in the effort to educate myself and to learn, so it concerns me that we want to pull money from our ambulance department.
We don't wanna
something that our
pull-
residents
don't-
need.
no.
12% raise.
We've been
For
given
the purpose.
$40,000 every year for a long, long time. Rob does a great job with the ambulance squad. I'm not, against the ambulance squad. We have other solutions and other alternatives. We haven't gone down that road.
Mhm.
We're trying to work with them, et cetera, et cetera. But also mention also that they do qualify and get LoSAP payments, which we're happy to give. So it's just not 40,000, it's 40,000, it's the gasoline, it's the LoSAP, and we're happy to do that.
Mhm.
But if you don't draw the line somewhere, we're also would love to work out some kind of arrangement that where they had their own building, basically for $1. But that would include the cooperation of the fire department. Whatever they end up doing, however they end up doing, and I know people in this audience here are looking to do that, and that would be a great solution. We would be happy for them to have their own building and their money's taking care of their part and we're taking care of our part. But they are a standalone corporation.
They're a half standalone corporation.
What's that mean?
Well, 12 hours of the day, they're volunteer.
They have volunteers for their corporation,
For-
yes.
But they're not
Right.
part of- Jen, you and I sat in how many meetings?
No, I understand. I'm saying that this would allow them to train 2 more people, and I don't think that I want to be responsible for costing the residents $350,000.
Are you saying out of their budget, they don't have $4,400? Out of the money that they bring in from salt building, they don't have the $4,400 for training?
I'm
Are you
saying,
saying that?
yes,
I disagree with you.
and I'm saying that I trust my source.
Well, that's why I'm in.
So just listening to the discussion that you have, I only have 2 comments. If the ambulance squad was part of the municipal budget, we couldn't afford to keep them right now. Because we don't have the money to support them, first. Secondly, I understand asking them to open up their books to us, but we don't even ask our own fire departments to open up the books to us. We don't know what each fire department has in their kitties. Every fire department has their own fundraising and things that they do. We don't ask them what their numbers are. So just based on what you're saying, those are just my 2 comments.
No, I think in the past, there should be proof that if they're getting the money, it should be shown how they're using the money, or we're not being fiscally responsible to our taxpayers.
So what you're saying is that you want to take the budget from $9.51 to $7 because you don't want to spend the money on the ambulance squad?
No, there were other things involved in here.
But even the public things, the environmental and the celebration of events, you think that the public is going to be happy that they saved $2 in the fact that they didn't get 2 EMTs trained, and now their things that they do enjoy in the summer and the fall and whatnot are now going to not happen because we did a $2 decrease in everybody's taxes. You know,
There's a 300% increase in the celebration material. How do you justify 300%?
well, I can
On
just,
anything, forget what it is, anything, 300%. How do you justify that?
I don't believe that it's 300%, Brad.
It is, it was 2,500. And it went to, the request was $10,000.
It was $2,500 and the request went to $10,000.
That's to me, that's,
We're cutting it to 5,000.
So-
and we're still willing to give 100% increase. That's unheard of.
so-
We give
so-
100% increase to everything. We can shut the doors down to the day.
Well, we're not gonna do 300% to everything because that would just be ludicrous. The increase in celebration of events is a line item that the entire public gets to benefit from. It's not one group, it's not one organization, it's something that's opened up for the entire town. We have events that we do have that are on the books, and we have events that people have asked to have that are other events that would come into play where we would need the dollars and the cents for that.
Mhm.
So to not have the money to be able to offer the public something that they've asked us to do, again, you're talking about a $9 increase to a $7 increase. To not be able to give, again, the public what they're asking for, and to be able to showcase Hopatcon the way it is, I don't see that as a large increase. And again, if those events don't take place, the money goes back into the general fund anyway. It's not a $40,000 ask, it's a $2,500 ask to a $10,000 ask.
$7,500.
Yeah. It's a $7,500, that's a difference in there.
Well, if you don't go through the budget line by line and you keep adding these up, it adds up to a tremendous budget increase.
Well,
We're
I-
just looking at things that you got environmental in there, and there's no environmental commission. You got beautification in there. We didn't cut it out. We just cut down things like for the salary for the lady that takes the minutes. You had it in there full bore, and we're already 3 months into
Right.
the accounting. It's ridiculous to keep it at $1,000, and we brought it down to $750. And then as far as whenever you can or will or maybe get another commission going, we weren't gutting it or anything like that. We just cut it down to a realistic number. But in that, we were able, we're in an effort to help Lorraine bring the numbers down to get it to whatever in view of the fact that we got other things coming into this town. And everybody in this town's had their property reevaluated. We got to see how that plays out. The school board is coming in probably about 4%, at which would be another additional $1,046,000. The county, we already know is an increase. And I just know there's a lot of poor people in this town that, you know, from the experience you had with trying to reduce the sewer tax by $15 or $25, how much that means to people. This is nothing to me, but if it's for the people out there that live even from paycheck to paycheck, that take the services of the wellness center and any other charity event out there in the churches, this and that, and the other. I'm here to be the counterpart of that. And if you guys want to spend money on a parade, when we got people who are living on rice and beans in some areas and don't have enough money on a weekly basis, that's what I'm offering as a counter. That's
okay, so those people who could possibly be on rice and beans are the exact people that would enjoy an event from the public that's free. Those specific people would enjoy a public event that they could take their children and their family to, that would be a free event. That's number one. Number two, the school is going to increase their taxes, and so is the county.
Mhm.
How long do you think this municipality is going to stay being able to sustain a 0% or almost a non-existent tax increase? You have your entire infrastructure around you falling around. There was a field walk on Sunday. We do not have a field that does not need major repairs. Major repairs. The only people who have children here are Jennifer and Rachel, but myself having to go through that and see those fields, that's horrendous. We don't have any money to fix those. We don't
Well,
have.
but not the, yeah, Ryan doesn't get.
I'm sorry, you do have children. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Ryan, you lost your children.
I didn't mean to just make them disappear. I apologize. But again, there's a lot of things that we just don't have money to fix. We don't have the money to fix the lights that are out on Hopatcon because the actual bulbs are not the only thing that needs to be replaced. So we have the entire center of town whose lights are out because we don't have money to replace it. And how long do you think you can keep things at a 0% tax increase? And I'm not for tax increases, I'm for logistics. And you can't repair the brickwork, the block work coming into the borough that's chipping and falling into the parking lot because we don't have the money for that. So how long can we actually sustain what you're talking about? Because the school is still making their increases and the county is still making their increases. How long can we take the punches without responding to where we need to be able to take care of our own? Because eventually these things are not just going to be repairs, you're going to have to replace them.
I understand
These
that.
things will get greater and greater and greater. And again, I'm not for a 0% tax increase, but we need to protect our infrastructure. And by not protecting our infrastructure, we're doing more damage moving forward than we are anywhere. Because there are going to be future councils that are going to be sitting here saying, what did they leave us with? We're not going to be there. So we have to be stewards of the dollars to make sure the dollars are spent in the right place. And when we left this meeting last time, I was under the impression that we were doing a 5% tax reduction and everything, so that everything was a $10 increase. We had agreed to just a $10 property increase. And then the emails started going back and forth with all the different things. And even Ryan said at the last meeting, you know, he didn't know if it was sustainable to stay at a 0% tax increase and was questioning that to a great deal, to which Lorraine had said, no, you really can't do that for long periods of time. I would like to continue the conversation, but maybe we should hear from our auditor in between. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Or does anybody else want to comment?
No.
Okay, I don't want to. So, Ray Sarinelli,
So you spent a lot of time talking about the appropriation side of the budget, and I'll tell you off the bat, that's not an area that I get too involved in. In fact, I can't get involved in it. I can't help make those decisions for you because then I'm not independent and I have to be an independent advisor. So that's what I try and do. I try and give you advice and trust that you all make the right decisions for what you need on the appropriation side of the budget. You know, what you need for police SNW, what you need for the environmental commission, what you need for the ambulance squad, and allow you to make those decisions, and then try and help you see how that affects taxes, the long-term plan and financial stability. So those are the areas that I look at, and you know, I think you know, over the years that I've been working with you, you've heard me say that getting to a zero tax increase is very difficult and will put, you know, pressure on future budgets. But you know, there always is, not always is, but there are sometimes ways to get there. And I think you've done a great job over the years of finding ways to get there, to get to a low tax increase or no tax increase to the average taxpayer. What I see in your financials right now is that your fund balance seems to be peaking. And that with, and will most likely be reduced in years to come. Now, I like to think I'm pretty good at what I do, but I'm not a magician, I can't see the future. So that may not be true, but to me, that's the indicators that I see. That is okay. Most people hear, well, the fund balance is gonna go down, it must be bad. Your fund balance is about 33% of your operations right now. And so what you know, I go by what the rating agencies suggest for your type of town. We probably want to see that fund balance in the 20 to 25% range. So there's room there to rely on the fund balance as a revenue source, right? So basically what the fund balance is it's like a savings account. And you can actually use some of that savings account to.
we were just
balance
taught to
your
never
budget.
say
We're not
that.
allowed to say that.
Our
What?
budgeting course that we took, they said you're never.
a surplus.
Yes.
We don't call it a surplus. I'll just sit there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, surplus is bad, because surplus used to be the word, and then everybody was like, oh, you got surplus, you have extra. It's not extra, it's your money that you rely on in a case of emergency, and the use and regeneration of fund balance helps with taxes, obviously. You use it as a revenue source, and then hopefully regenerate it. Sometimes you regenerate more than you expected, and your fund balance goes up. Sometimes you don't generate as much, and the fund balance goes down. So what we were doing now is relying on the fund balance a little bit to help us through these budgets and try and get taxes to a lower point. Eventually that has to run out. So, and that's why, you know, long-term non-tax increases aren't fully sustainable, because at a certain point you can't rely on your fund balance anymore. I don't think that should be shocking news to anybody here. I feel like I've said that numerous times when I've come. You guys always work very hard on finding ways to either cut appropriations or find new revenues, grants, things like that, to try and help support your budget. And that's done a great job over the last 5 years. You've had very limited tax increases. So the budget that I see in front of me is still using a high amount of fund balance, but we're looking to draw the fund balance down. So I understand that level of usage in this budget. But it is going to put more pressure on future budgets to try and, you know, reduce that usage. So right now it's at 2.5 million. At some point it'll need to be 2.3 million, then 2 million, then 1.9 million. And as we go through the next several years, we'll see how much fund balance is sustainable and what we need to come off of in order to balance the budget. So that's how I look at the budget. What you decide to do on the appropriation side, I try and just make the revenue side work towards what you're building into that. So that's what I see. The more appropriations you cut, the less will be going to regenerate fund balance in the future. It's all very complicated and comes full circle, and it's taken me 15 years to understand how it all works. I don't want to go into all of that with you, but it's a very complicated ebb and flow with the fund balance. So I think the budget as it was presented is a good long-term budget. It's just gonna, put a little bit more pressure on future budgets as we come to try and rely less on our fund balance.
Are you taking questions yet?
Of course.
Okay, so regeneration of taxes in other communities, what type of sources are regeneration of taxes? I'm sorry,
Regeneration
fund balance.
regeneration of fund balance. So fund balance is really regenerated in a few ways. The one way is unbudgeted revenues. So revenues in excess of what you budget fall directly to the fund balance. Included in that is taxation. So we hopefully we base our taxation on a percentage less than what we actually need to collect, because we are the collecting agent for the school and the county. So we know we're not going to collect 100%, but we're going to have to pay out. So the balance between knowing what our reserve for uncollected taxes, our appropriation for those costs that we're paying out to the county and to the school, plus what we collect, can fall to fund balance. That's a big one. So the better your collection percentage is, the better your fund balance is. Part of the reason most municipalities have had fund balance growth over the last several years is their collection has been very good. The economy has been fairly strong. Inflation is obviously very high, so people have money to spend. They've been paying their taxes. So that's one way. Another way is through the lapsing of appropriations. So your budget is based on a 2-year cycle. What you don't spend in, let's say, 2023 goes into a reserve year in 2024, and then those unspent funds come back in the budget. So those are like the two biggest areas that in which you regenerate your fund balance, is from unbudgeted revenues, including taxation, which higher collection percentage means you're collecting more than you budgeted, and then the lapsing of appropriations, things that are unspent, and that's how you use and regenerate fund balance.
So from what I understand, we have minimalistic budget that's coming over from 23. It's not a large amount. And when it comes to the collection of taxes, we have a very high collection, so we can't anticipate 100%, but we're pretty close to that. So we don't have any new income that would come in from those per se for next year's budget. We do have some real estate that we can continue to sell, but for revenue sources, we really don't have manufacturing. We don't have any big developers coming in. Our most recent developer, on Lakeside Boulevard, he's pretty much done. So those taxes will be into this year. So we don't have a lot of new income sources to bring any new revenue in. So the revenue that we currently have is the revenue that we're going to continue to have, unless we can get another revenue source, is basically what you're saying.
Right, and municipalities across the board are pretty limited in what revenues you can produce, because you're not a business that's going to create a new line of service or a new product to sell. You're limited in what you offer. So revenues are hard for any municipality to come by. Grants is the biggest thing that you can help alleviate some of your revenue issues by taking in a grant to help offset your appropriation.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions for Ray?
I just want to add something to that. When you discuss what the reserve for uncollected taxes, that kind of comes off the top. So if we want to collect $13 million from our taxpayers, that $1.7 million comes off of that, and we just have to collect the difference. So we have to collect, say, 12.3. Our collection rate is really good. Every year it keeps getting better. The better it gets, we keep that rut at the same level, and the amount of taxes that we're collecting in excess of what we're anticipating is growing. So not that that's an incredible trick, but mathematically, that's how it works out. We're not changing our rut, that's staying at the 1.7, and the higher our tax collection rate is, the more income we're bringing in that we're not anticipating. So that's a regeneration right there. And we ended with 1.3 million in appropriations from our 2023 budget. So the less we spend of that, the more that will get canceled back to regenerate fund balance at the end of this year as well.
And what's our collection percentage? 90, are we
98, 6 or 7?
It's just under, it's high, just under 99.
I remember you saying that about the 1.7 million, it's just like, kind of like as soon as it just goes away.
98.46.
Yeah.
What's that?
That is good,
But it's amazing. It's a great collection rate. That's something that we should be proud of our collector for. All of that revenue, it just goes back to our fund balance.
So what would the finance committee do in the past? What are some of the creative ways that you guys would make your cuts? I know you said it was difficult because Republican can't be as creative, but what would the finance committee do in previous years? to
In
find-
terms of finance things and how to do it as efficient as we could for that many years.
You guys made yeah, you can
Create,
cuts as creatively because we buy. So what kind of
Well,
what are some examples of those?
it would be not buy everything at the same time. It would be spread it out in terms of your biggest expenses, which is usually equipment, fire trucks, et cetera, et cetera. And we started that with the last truck that we, well, not started it, but we keep doing that with the trucks that we buy. But also we always were looking at the revenue stream, creative ways. And just to go over a few was obviously a sale of real estate. This town owns over 700 pieces of property. That is the market. We have over, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but over 100 pieces of property that are in foreclosure that are coming to the town. That needs to be pursued and watched and things. So you have the potential all the time, not just potential, it works, it happens. Bringing more money into the town, it saves our taxpayers from paying an exorbitant tax. We have managed, if you've noticed, and I don't know if you're aware of this, some people are coming back to HOPATCon. The school numbers are coming back up in terms of the attendance this year. So in doing that is because we've made HOPATCon over the years affordable, more affordable than it had been. The realtors a while back were like, you can either live on this side of the lake or live on the other side of the lake. And the other side of the lake was usually cheaper in terms of taxes. So we kept on going. You had the landfill revenue we started. We are always looking at different ways to bring it in from utilities company. I introduced the mayor to the president of Planet Network last week. That would be a potential other improvement to the town, as well as a little additional cost savings on providing an internet service to either just the senior center or the entire town, or possibility of revenue as far as lease money. Obviously the old recycling center, the old dump, we call it that. That is a win-win for this town in that there's two things. A, we get yearly annual income from that with there's a kicker on that at every year it goes up, which is great. But the second thing, and more importantly on this, is that it took the liability, our lifelong liability on maintaining that facility, if you call it that, the actual graveyard over there, away from us, and it put the monkey on the back of the leasing company. And that was another huge win-win for the town. And we continue to go along looking at creative things. The recycling center has its ebb and flow in terms of what's valuable and what's not valuable anymore. Do they want it? They don't want it. We were looking into the feasibility of, can we take the plastic that we get so much of and actually shred it ourselves and resell it for manufacturers to do anything they want with that raw material? Then that would possibly be a big bump for us, because we're not making a lot of money in certain areas on the recycling. Obviously, we have to pay for the removal of the leaves and the shredding of the trees, et cetera, that kind of thing. But there are potential revenue streams there that need to be pursued. I go on and on in terms of things that you can look into to do. You know, I mentioned earlier about taking the ambulance squad and see a possibility if the fire departments ever want to come down to a 2-building fire department and have the third one handed off to the ambulance squad. And it would be a win-win for everybody. I do believe it's, you know, it's in the hands of our fire department to do a great job.
Why don't we talk about the landfill for a second?
Sure.
When was the last time we received a payment for the solar panels? That's my number one question. And my second question is how much money do we now have to spend testing the soil there because there's something on it?
We spend no money.
I don't think that's true.
We have soil testing, but that hasn't changed since the solar
I
panels
didn't
went
think
in.
that we had to test it if it wasn't, if there's nothing on it.
It's capped. We always have to. Every year we have to test it.
Okay. And when
That's
was the
part
last
of
time
the
do you remember the
landfill.
last time we got paid by the people for the solar
They
panel?
did not pay us in December. They paid us the December before though. So normally they just pay us once a year.
Once a year.
So they have not paid us December of 2023 yet.
And what is that revenue? $24,000?
Yeah, that's what it would be at least. Yeah, this year it should be maybe around 25.
I am gonna preface this by saying that, you know, I don't want a tax increase either. We live here, we all live here. Nobody wants a tax increase. With the original budget that Marie presented to us, $67 on the average house is $5.58 a month. A month. Anything on the appropriation side that's not used goes back into the fund balance we would generate. Correct me if I'm wrong, is that right?
That's correct.
And I think that as someone who actually went on the field walk yesterday, and whose kids have used the fields and who have listened to the parents who use the fields, it's really $5.58 a month to take that money and invest it back into your greatest asset, which is this town. And I'll tell you, we did it your way for 5 years, right? The 0%, the flat tax, whatever you want to call, we did it for 5 years. There are potholes in the hills that I could go swimming in that haven't been paved. The parks all need major improvement. We actually had to decommission Jefferson Field because it's been ignored for years and years and years. It's an unusable piece of property that we have now. Can't use it. Vets needs drainage. We need bleachers. There's bleachers on here that we need to replace bleachers. We don't, by the way. I figured out how to fix that. But you're ignoring your greatest asset is investing. We're not at the original budget isn't like, oh, let's just raise taxes by $67 a year. It's let's invest back into our community. This building, I mean, not that I want to take money and put it into this building, but like last year you had no problem putting aside how much, how many thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to make improvements on this building, but you don't want to spend any money to pave or to fix our parks. And I'll tell you something, the three of us are here because we did everything. You guys did everything you did for 5 years. People want something different. You're talking about $5.58 a month. Now you want to come to an agreement and say, let's split it in half and do 30, which would be, how much is that? 30 divided by 12? Can't do that math in my head. That's how much you're talking, half. $3 a month. On an average house, $3 a month. I don't think is too much to ask of anybody to invest back into the community. But this number and decimating this budget like this. And it also, my question too is that the four of you are obviously having conversations.
No, don't say the four of
Okay,
us.
the three of you then are having conversations that we're being left out of. And we're not being, and as the council president, you should be informing us every time you speak to the auditor.
Oh, every time I
You
speak
haven't
to the auditor,
included
every time I
Anytime
talk
you
to
see
the
it, why
Lorraine, are you crazy?
When you came in your transition in January, February, your doors were closed and none of us were invited to those meetings, whatever you guys were talking about.
I have to tell you, I spent hours in this building. I don't see you come into this building unless you're picking up your agenda. I'm here almost 3
True,
times a week,
But when
3
I
days a week.
when I came in on occasion to like give out peanut brittle for Christmas or whatever, those doors were shut, you guys were in
I wasn't
them.
here for Christmas. We weren't
You were
allowed
here
to
for
be here
Christmas.
until after,
Alright.
after.
It was
Christmas.
January because I didn't get it done in time, whatever. The point of the story is, I was in here multiple times, the doors were shut, and I'd say, oh, where is everybody? Oh, they're having a meeting, the three of you are having a meeting, If you want inclusion, then do it,
Mhm.
include us. We have conversations socially, I have not ever talked to Dawn, I think once on the phone, right?
That's
In
right.
a year.
That's
I've
right.
spoken to you on the phone. I have occasionally sent you an email address and I will occasionally stop in your place. I talk to you never on the phone, maybe to say, you know, are you meeting here at such and such a time? And yes, a couple of emails have transpired where people had comments about, you know, but I mean, you two and three are talking to each other all the time, yet you have a problem that we may be having a conversation that we don't particularly like spending money like this. You know, and
Spending
as far
money
as
like
me not
thi-
going,
like
wait,
this
excuse
is
me,
what?
She's not
I
done.
didn't interrupt you.
Mhm.
As far as me not going to the ambulance squad, a fiscal responsibility is to the town. It isn't to each council person. And if they have been asked for years, which is what I was told last year.
So you hear
They,
firsthand.
I was asked last year when I was assigned to the ambulance squad, I went to the mayor and 2 other council people and said, what do we do about this? Do you go to the meetings? What's going on? And they say, we have asked for years for a justification of where the $40,000 goes. And did you ever get it?
We got one, we did get it, in all fairness. The only thing in that was that, it had the expenses and everything like that, but it had like revenue of us giving them 40,000 twice in a year, which we
Which
never
you
did.
didn't do.
Yeah,
So
so it
I'm
it
just
didn't
saying,
fill us
let's
with
trace the
confidence.
money and make sure that the money that is being budgeted goes to the exact things. So how do you know they can't afford 2 new people if they've already down 2 people and you need to give them extra money when they're not even accounting for the money they're getting? That is my point.
Because when I was the ambulance liaison, I went to every single one of their meetings.
Well, good
So I
for
knew what their
you.
financials
Did you
were.
justify
Hold on one
exactly
second.
everything they did?
And the year that I think you're talking about, the year that there was 2 40s posted, and I know Rob can't speak, we were late in giving them the payment from the year before, so we did give them 2 $40,000 year payments, and I think that was in 2022. And why do I know that? Because I go to the meetings.
Mhm.
That's why. And when I said, why the heck is it 80,000? Don't we only give you 40? Did we up it to 80? And the answer was because you gave us 40 twice in 1 year. If I remember correctly, it was either 21 or 22 that we missed and we had to make it up. So it wasn't a miscalculation on their part. It was a miscalculation and a mispayment on our part.
I wasn't told that.
Well, I was, because
No.
again,
Then
I
share
went
it.
to the
Did
meetings.
you share?
Okay.
Okay, but now
But I didn't know
you
that there was
just
a question about that. If there was a question about that, I would have been happy to answer it.
But you just
I-
said too, that they're down people because of COVID and whatever.
Yep.
So where's the money being saved for that? Why can't that money be spent on training?
Because honestly, what?
You want this extra money.
They're down on volunteers. They're not down on paid staff. They're down on volunteers.
Okay,
Because we
nobody
haven't
said
been
that.
We
Nobody
haven't
said
been
that.
able to train volunteers with everything being closed down. Right?
So it didn't have to do with money, it has to do with things being closed.
It has to do with the training they're very behind, and now there's a wait list for training because everybody's now jumping to training. So offering them $4,800, giving them that $4,800, and I will also tell you this, I know in 22, they asked for $5,400. And that's when the training was $1,700. They could have sent 4 people through training and they wouldn't have asked us for the 47.6 this year if you had given them the 45 2 years ago. If you'd given them the 45.6, we wouldn't have been in the situation we're in where they asked for 47.6 or 40, whatever it was. Because I think they asked for 47.6 and the agreement was 48, which will send 2 people to training. And that's what I'm saying, but it's for the volunteers. It's not for the paid EMTs. It's for the volunteer EMTs.
Well, since it's come up, because just going forward, I trust the expertise of Lorraine and of Ray, but going forward, looking at, we're not doing next year's budget, but it's gonna have to be done.
Mhm.
Why don't we make a requirement that the books be shared with all of council prior to the next creating of the next municipal budget?
I think that if you called Rob or emailed Rob and asked him for the books, he would give them to you tomorrow.
Okay, well, some people have said they've asked and haven't gotten them.
I will.
So I'm just saying,
going
going forward, that should just be a requirement that we see the books, mayor and council sees the books prior to the 25 municipal budget.
I agree with that.
And as a learning curve, I'd like to know why the fire department, if they get money from us, why they don't have to show us what they spend it on.
Well, if you're interjecting, do you mind?
No,
If you're asking for the ambulance squad to produce books, you're gonna have to have everybody produce their books, because it would not be fair for one entity to produce their books and not the rest of
And
them.
I think that's a fiscal
That's fair.
responsibility of this council to know where your money's going and what it's being spent on. I mean, maybe there's an overlap that we don't know about. You know, maybe if you're giving money out to different parts and things and you're not having some kind of audit of that spending, then how do you know it's being utilized correctly? And maybe there's an overlap. Was the Recreation Commission overlapping the Environmental Commission? I don't know, just a thought, you know, when there's planting and then there's decorating and there's all kinds of things. We don't know where the overlaps are if you don't know where the money's going. You're saying it's going to them and we're entrusting them with the money. But if you're responsible to protect the taxpayers, I think we all need to ask the questions and say, where is the money being spent and on what? Because the town in its entirety, because you have a huge senior population, you have a huge school population, you have some middle of the road population, they're all gonna have different needs. And they may not, some of them may not see the logic of a new fire truck, but may want the fields done. Or some may not want the fields done, but they may want the senior thing done. You cannot please everybody, but at least we should be more fiscally responsible by looking into it, that's all I'm
So
asking.
have you?
No, I have not, I've never been on finance, it was a committee last year,
But you're a
which.
council person. Yes, I said, if you have a question, send an email. If they can't tell you,
I
they
know how
can't
to
tell
do
you.
this, dear,
But you
I
have
know,
a year and a half on council and you have not.
I have
Okay.
done research.
Mayor,
on
we're
it.
not
I've
here to
taken
scold
classes.
each other.
Let's
Mayor.
just
And I don't like your
stop,
attitude.
stop,
So let's get creative then.
stop. I'm gonna hop over you for a second, Rachel, so you guys kind of stop. So, when it comes to finding out what the expenses are and where they're being spent, every council meeting, there is a bill list. And every council meeting on that bill list are the expenses for the fire department, the money that goes to the ambulance squad. So my suggestion would be, when you're going through that bill list, ask where all of those are coming from, because that's how, you can go to Lorraine and get those before the meeting. You can go to the administrator, you can go to anybody and get those, and that will be self-explanatory. The ambulance squad raises money on their own to help fund their buildings and all of their other expenses that they have. The fire department does exactly the same, the individual 3 departments, and the 4th as a whole, they also do the same thing so that they can raise money for things that the borough does not pay for. Those are the accounts that you're asking to see, because all the other accounts of things that happen in those buildings that we pay for, they come out of our checks,
Okay,
you know, out of our bill list.
okay, that's what
So
I'm
if,
asking. the
if there is
question.
something specific, I would just say, you could always, you know, email Lorraine and say you wanted to know what the expenses for number 2, 3, and 4 were last year, or whatever, and she'll be happy to give, she'll be happy to give you all the information in that aspect. But before we actually formalize and vote on something where this is a budget meeting, so I don't know legally if we can make something like that up where we're going to ask to do something before the next budget and vote on that without it being a meeting where the public can talk.
You would have to allow the public to talk.
Yeah. So that would have to come up at
Mhm.
Wednesday, just so, I just don't want to get in trouble.
No, I respect that.
Just doing again, John's not here and he's
Yeah.
really gonna give me grief. if
No,
do
I respect
something wrong. So I do appreciate that. So, were you finished, Christine?
Yes.
Did you wanna start, Rachel, or?
Yeah, so, everybody is well aware of what an asset this wellness center is to our community. We can't do without it, there's no question about it, we need it here. Operationally, does it make sense to relocate, keep it, but relocate it to a municipally owned building, because that would reduce a lot of operational costs?
I have no idea.
Probably something to consider.
I
With the
have no
amount of space that we have in our senior center, we can have the same services for a lot less, because it's not just the $9.50 a month plus the utilities. We pay $5,000 a year just for the internet. Just for the internet. Again, we need a wellness center, there's no question about it. I just feel like we'd be saving a lot of money.
Seniors, I guess.
And that would, if Planet Network, we came up with an agreement with Planet Network, that was something that Brad was saying would be free at the senior center, would be internet, right?
Right.
That
So
would-
relocating the wellness center is one of my suggestions, and something that I know has been discussed previously, and it's always been misconstrued that we want to close it, which we do not want to close the wellness center. Relocating it just is a fiscally responsible decision, in my opinion.
The lease was signed without my knowledge. And so if we break the lease, we're gonna have to pay for every month until the lease is up.
There's no outlaws?
No, and I wasn't part of the equation when that lease was signed. So I was told after the lease was signed, because I was actually trying to move over here to an empty building. And then I heard that the lease had been signed.
How can
So
they have
the
signed
lease has the rest of this year. The lease has the rest of this year, the rest of 24, and it's up December 31st of 25. And then, yeah, move it. You should move it.
How could they have signed a lease without it coming in front of you? The council has to vote on that,
Never came in front of us.
right?
Yeah,
The lease needs to be
the lease
approved by
was
the
approved.
council.
It never came in front of us.
So then it's probably not real.
No, it's real. It just never came in front of
There
us.
could be a question about enforceability. I know, let the attorney comment on that.
Yes.
It came up last February of 20, it was
Mhm.
either February 22 or February 23, where the lease was renewed for 3 years.
And it had
Um,
already been signed.
Who was it signed by?
Well, we can find out. That's
You can find
not a
out.
question for.
No, it's not. No, it's
Was
not
it
for
Mike?
this.
Somebody from the town had to have signed.
Yeah, and you can find out
Yeah,
after
we
the
don't have to
meeting.
do that now. That's, I mean, it's a suggestion.
So it was signed without a vote from council.
Mhm.
So then we can question legal.
Well, that'd be
the
something you
legality.
need to talk to John
John
Urston
Urston,
about.
Okay. But that would be something that,
Yeah, it should be moved.
Was that it? Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Ryan, you're awfully quiet.
Everybody counts. Whether it's just $5 or just $3 a month. But everybody counts. I know when I do my budget for my house, every fall. I know the county's gonna go up a lot more than you guys expect. Simply because of the assessment that we did in our town. We staved that off for a long time. But while everybody else's base is getting higher, ours are staying down here, so our taxes were staying relatively low. We're gonna get hammered by county. And we're gonna get hammered by the schools. The reason we get hammered by the schools is because our governor defunded our school. That has nothing to do with this town. That has to do with the things that are happening down in Trenton. And I know a lot of people are mad at the school board for that. School board ain't got nothing to do with it. My taxes keep going up by a lot, and this year, they're gonna go up a lot. So if we can't figure out a way to squeeze every penny out of this budget, we're not doing our jobs.
So you think that the public is gonna understand that we didn't raise any taxes, even though their taxes are gonna go way up? You think that
I
they're
think we're
going
gonna
to?
get the blame no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And
So-
that's what happens every year.
So again, so if we're gonna continue to keep taking the blame for everything, but not actually
Reap any of the benefits.
reap any of the benefits or be able to repair our infrastructure and our investment, as Jen brought up, Jefferson Field is a perfect example. It's underwater. It hasn't been underwater since the 80s because it needs continual maintenance that has never been done. So you're gonna take away the things out of celebration of events, which would be free events for the entire public, for the entire town. We're gonna take that away at $5 a month so that the schools can still have their increase and the county can still have their increase. Our infrastructure is gonna continually suffer. Our way of life for our residents is gonna suffer because they don't have anything to go to and there's nothing to do. And all we're gonna be able to say is, well, we kept our taxes flat. Most people, when you're talking to them, most people are very upset, like Jen said, they're upset about the fields, they're upset about municipal buildings, they're upset about the parks, they're upset about all of those things. And there are people that do need help, absolutely, those people need help. But those people, there's definitely avenues for them, but the other people that are here that are looking to have just regular things happen in their town are going to be out of luck because we have not found either another revenue source or we're now looking at every single line item for every single penny. We were all comfortable with a $10 increase. I think the outpouring of what you see is based on the fact that we're trying to get a budget increase from $9 to $7, and in the middle of that $2, we're talking about taking away money out of celebration events, environmental commission, open space. Again, environmental commission does the 2 cleanups throughout the town. We're not gonna be able to do those cleanups throughout the town.
There's no commission there.
Right, but there will be a commission for us to be able to do that. Just because it's not here now doesn't mean it's not coming, doesn't mean it's not gonna be here.
I hate to interrupt, but you're going down a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down.
Can I ask,
Let's
can I
not
ask,
argue about the existence of the environmental commission.
No.
We're gonna
can I
talk
ask
about this
2
one.
questions
Sure.
and maybe, I don't know if to either one of you guys, but I'm gonna ask the question that I ask you every year for the last 5 years, Ray. You know, remember the question? If we stay at flat this year, how long can we do that for? And what does it mean perhaps for next year or the year after? Because you were saying about future budgets, this is gonna affect us in future budgets.
I mean, that's a very, very difficult question to answer because there are many things like the land sales that you could sell 100 properties this year, you could sell none. You know, those are the types of things that I can't see. But you know, if the fund balance is peaking and if the fund balance is being reduced, we're gonna have to come off that reliance. It's at, you're using 2.5 million this year. So we'll have to reduce that next year. Is there something that can replace that? I don't know if we'll have that next year. So it'll be, it will put more pressure on next year's budget in order to try and meet the demands of the appropriations.
So let me just ask a question. If we have an emergency and something were to happen as our fund balance keeps going lower and lower and lower, how does that affect things? If we had an emergency where we had to take a chunk of money out of fund balance, how would it affect a budget moving forward?
So the way that your budget works, you wouldn't just be able to take money out of fund balance. You can
Emergency, I
only,
get it.
you can only do it through this process, but what you can do is if you have an emergency, it's called an emergency. You do an emergency and it creates a new appropriation. However, you haven't funded that appropriation, you would have to fund it in the next year. And so again, it would put more pressure on next year's budget because let's say you had something go wrong and you needed to spend $100,000 on that. You would have to raise $100,000 in next year's budget to pay for that emergency that happened in the previous year. It's called a deferred charge, right? That makes sense. You charged it in one year and deferred it to the next year. So again, You don't know what the rest of your budget is gonna do, but you would know immediately you have $100,000 expense in the following year. Could you use fund balance to fund that? Sure. Could you use taxation to fund it? Yes. Could you use other revenue sources to fund it? Yes. So it all, there's a lot of variables, but yes, it would put more pressure on another budget cycle in the following year to try and meet that demand.
Okay, thank you.
I know I'm asking you to project, but just always looking forward. Okay, so, we were okay with the 5% decrease in each department, the 990 down to, where are we down to now, 7 something?
We're still at
Um,
990.
I think with the
Still at,
5%.
oh, we're at 990,
right?
okay. So if we did that tonight, would that allow mayor and council to keep a flat tax next year? Because, okay, the $5 isn't a lot this year, but after 5-10 years, if we kept going at that rate, it's gonna be a burden. So if we did this, would next year, would it be more probable that we could keep taxes flat next year, so we're not doing this every single year, raising taxes every year, or is that too much for you to project? Would it put us in a position to give people a break next?
Question to answer.
I know,
There
but
are a lot of variables. It is going to be difficult over the next several years because your fund balance needs to stabilize probably, let's see, what did I say? You're at 6.3 and it probably needs to come down to somewhere around 5 million. So you have a 1 million, $1.3 million to play with over the next several years. So as the fund balance comes down, when does it start to stabilize? That's very tough for me to predict. I would say over the next 3 to 4 years, you're probably going to need some type of revenue increase to offset those reductions in fund balance to eventually get that fund balance stabilized. That's with everything that I know right now.
okay, that's
So,
fair.
Yeah, you're looking at a 3 to 4 year period here where the fund balance is coming down to a number that we needed to, but also the use of fund balance needs to come down to a number that we needed to. And eventually it'll all stabilize together.
And
I
then,
think a big reason that you've been able to stay flat over the last few years is that the fund balance has been growing. There has been grants that have helped offset appropriations. So certain appropriations are lapsing back into fund balance. Prior to my time here, the fund balance grew tremendously. And then COVID happened, which we thought was going to decimate fund balance, and actually reduced spending even more, and fund balance grew even more.
Mhm.
And so there was more to rely on in the future. So we have been relying on fund balance for a number of years to help keep taxes low.
Mhm.
It's just, you get to a certain point in time where that's just no longer possible.
And then we would be forced to raise taxes.
right,
Right.
okay,
Or cut appropriations, or find new revenue sources.
But the other point of this is with this 5% decrease in the appropriations, if we go over that, if you have a department that goes over that, what happens?
They can't go over it. We can't have an
What if
over
there's an
expenditure.
emergency and?
Then we declare an emergency and you create
And then
a
it's
deferred
the same
charge.
thing.
And you have to raise it 100% that next year, but
Same
another
thing.
point to bear in mind with our fund balance, like I said before, it's hard to generate, very easy to spend. The tighter we make our budget, the less appropriations we're gonna have to cancel and lapse back to fund balance. So we're gonna start regenerating less and we're using more to bear that balance down. So I think 5 is too low. I'd rather be at 5.5 million for our fund balance, but we don't want to get there in 1 year. We want to kind of gradually siphon that down so that we can ease that tax rate. So if you go up $10 per average house this year, maybe have another small increase, maybe just keep it very, very small so that you can afford to make improvements to your infrastructure and your fields and everything that you guys want to improve.
Mhm.
And you're not kicking the can 100% down the road, but you don't want to burn all that fund balance off in 1 year. That's pretty irresponsible. You're not leaving anything for the next couple of councils that come in, but we're going to be regenerating less and less fund balance. We've had a windfall with all the property sales. Eventually, we're not going to have the big properties like we had last year. We have smaller properties. They're not going to sell for as much. We haven't sold anything, and the first quarter of the year is almost finished. So we're going to have less revenue coming in from that. And that's really been a windfall for this. That's an unanticipated revenue going right into our fund balance. So the less of that we do, and the tighter that our budget is, we're regenerating less fund balance right off the top. So you have to guard that a little bit more.
Okay.
Ray, is it safe to say that continually taking the fund balance the way that we are and having a 0% tax increase, that there is going to come a point in time, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years from now, that it's going to be an increase, a huge hit? Or
It could
greater than
potentially
most,
be
maybe huge isn't the word. I'm trying not to make it seem like it's an avalanche, but it's going to be a big impact because it's been zero for so long.
It could, I don't think you're to that point yet, right? So.
But we're going that way.
Well, the fund balance is starting to come down, and I'll steal something that my dad says. He always says fund balance has momentum. So when it's going up, it seems like it's always going to continue to go up, and when it's going down, it seems like it's always going to go down. So as it starts to come down, we need to have a plan to come off of it. So right now, the plan is for it to come down gradually over time. If we kept saying, well, we're just going to keep using more and more, it would get to a point where then we'd go off the cliff and we'd have to reduce it. We wouldn't have a choice, we would have to reduce it. Right now, we're in the driver's seat and we have you're in the driver's seat. You have the ability to make the choices of where it goes for the next 4 to 5 years, including in this budget. Even next year, you'll still have the choice. If you continue down this road for another, if you just stayed at 2.5 million for the next 4 years, we'd get to a point where I would say you don't have a choice, and you would be off a cliff, and we'd have to increase taxes, or you'd have to cut programs, or do whatever you had to do to get to a balanced budget.
So having the fund balance that we have, taking the little bits that we are and adding them into every year. When we get to that point where we can't really take a lot out of fund balance anymore, whether that's 2 years from now or 3 years from now, the only way to recoup that money back in the budget is through taxation, correct?
So
Because if there's no new revenue sources and there's no property to sell and there's no new revenue sources, the only thing out of your little trio is taxes.
Right.
So taxes at that point would be the only thing infused in to cover those holes, which are hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars.
So you have revenues and you have appropriations. They always have to equal.
Mhm.
Fund balance is one of your revenues. So if fund balance is going to go down, you either have to cut your appropriation, or you have to keep this here and find a new revenue. New revenues are hard to come by, so it could potentially be taxation, or it would have to be a decrease in the appropriations to meet that reduction.
So we would have to cut services and employees and things even more to the residents as opposed to taxation, but it would be one of those two. It's okay, just say it.
It would
It's
have to
okay.
be either a cut to appropriations or an increase in revenue.
Thank you. Thank you. Ray. Anybody else?
Do you guys remember what year it was, when David was still here, outsourcing our municipal court? We're not actually saving any money on that right now, right? The
We're
savings-
saving a dramatic amount on that.
I thought he said we wouldn't see the savings until year 5 though, right?
No, we have a savings in this year's budget. Yeah, if you look at all the appropriations we used to pay, the prosecutor, the public defender, court, all of those, it was a pretty significant savings. I can figure out exactly what it is if you'd like.
That would be helpful, thank you. And we're no longer paying any of the employees. We were for a little while, right, after the court had.
We had an obligation to the judge, the contractual judge.
And we're seeing higher overtime payouts for the police department because we have to now send officers up to Andover.
You'd have to check with our chief, but I haven't
There is an
noticed
increase of
anything.
100% over 2 years in the overtime for the police department. It's gone from 70,000 to $140,000 request. I just want to point that out in the budget line,
For what?
overtime,
For whom?
police.
They're short people right now.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
26.
For 2 years, some of our DEA funding paid for police overtime.
Does anybody else have anything?
So where are we with this then? Like what?
You have to make a decision. Somebody has to push things in a direction, whether you're going to go with what Dawn just suggested, which was the 951, if everybody's comfortable with that. Or if there was a different suggestion. Dawn was the only one that brought something.
We'll make a compromise. I'm willing to go with a compromise. If there are any other people, I'll throw it out there, whether or not they want to go with it or not, I'll just throw it out there. I know you're big on celebration funds. It is a 300% increase. If that's what you really want, we'll work with that. You want to do 200% down to 7,500?
Sure.
7,500, we'll do that. Ambulance contribution, go with that.
Okay.
So 2 training spots. The simple thing was the environmental salary and wages is down to 500. I can't believe you have a problem with that.
No.
It's gonna be a while. That's a $500 save, not much. Same on the beautification. If you get something going at some point in time or anything like that, you know, you'd still have $2,000 in there to spend for whatever. So that to me is, it's just saving money from 5,500 down to 2,000. Throw that into this whole big compromise. Environmental materials is really more in terms of a few projects that
I'm looking for the dumpsters, the 2 dumpsters is what I'm looking for. Pat Mason, we were talking today about the 2 cleanup days, so
there'd be $1,000 in there. Is that fair?
I don't know if that covers the dumpsters, but that's what we were looking for, was the dumpsters and everything that the county doesn't cover for the cleanups.
Right, let's well, then we'll do the dumpsters at $2,000 then. We'll leave the dumpsters at $2,000. That's your original request. Throw that in there. And really, at that point, and again, the comments are always made that it's only another $5. That's on top of X amount of thousands of dollars on your tax bill. That's
And
all
I
I'm saying.
understand that, but you're investing $5 in, like the county,
We're
right?
investing thousands of
I understand, but we don't see any of that. I mean, our roads get paved. I don't wanna say that, that's not nice to the county, but our roads get paved and snow plowed and whatever, but we're not like directly seeing that. But for $5, we are. That's right.
But hopefully,
Or $3.
hopefully
we
it'll
are.
work out that way.
I don't think we're cutting the paving budget at all this year.
Yeah.
Well, it's not she's not just talking about the paving, she's talking about all of the other infrastructure things that are not repaired or that are not gonna be funded because of the budgets being the way that they are.
And it puts a lot of pressure on us also to go out for grants so that we can move the appropriation stuff, so we can regenerate the fund balance. So it puts a lot of pressure to get grants.
And the problem with the grants are you have to also pay to apply for a lot of these grants for the work that has to get done, and then the possibility comes in that you don't get it. So,
Grants aren't free.
no, grants aren't free, we have to pay for them and the work for them, and then, and it also takes away from the employees, the department heads that are filling out that paperwork also for the grant writers. Plus the grant writers charge us, and if we get a grant, that's great, but if we don't, even if we were to apply, Jen, for 50 grants, you're paying for 50 grants, hoping to get something out of that. So grants are great, but like Ryan just said, they're not free. And just to go on the point of, you know, I know it's only $5 a month. The unfortunate thing is that everything in this world is going up. Car insurance goes up, people have to pay it. Food goes up, people have to pay it. Health insurance goes up, people have to pay it. The infrastructure of this town is really important. And I'm not saying that it's going up $5, people have to pay it. That is not my mentality. But again, when you're walking around and you're looking at these things, and I would love to take anybody on a field day walk to all of these things that are just really just crumbling around us, that you just maybe have not gone to, maybe have not seen. But there really is a lot. There really, really is a lot. So I understand that people might not be able to afford $5, but where $5 concerns, where they have to pay the increase on car payments, car insurance, mortgages, PMI, all kinds of great stuff. That $5 is covered there, and the whole town doesn't benefit from it. But the whole town would benefit from everybody having to contribute $5 to our investment. And I'm sure that there are thousands of people that live here that would be happy to contribute $10 to our cause to make sure that our infrastructure stays standing.
I fully appreciate that. However, we're also putting in money for the Riddicon field of 75,000. So we're putting in money in different places. It's not just
That's
of
just
this
the
little
fencing,
bit.
right?
But that's
There
just,
is no fencing at Riddicon.
but that's just the fencing, and that's something that's been being asked for since 2015.
Mhm. And
So,
we're agreeing with that.
yes.
We didn't look at 75,000.
No, it was, not Riddicon. I'm not thinking, I'm
Can
wrong.
can
I
I just,
apologize.
can I just pare it back? What I think I heard was the consensus, so I'm just on Chris.
You don't want us
Yeah,
to
poor
lose the
Greg.
consensus, is that what you?
You
So
caught
you
me.
said back with
I
the
got
4,800,
We-
So
we-
the 44,800 ambulance contribution will remain.
yes.
The S&W for environmental will decrease to 500.
Yes,
Beautification decrease to 2,000.
correct,
Environmental materials remain at 2,000.
correct,
Celebration materials, 7,500.
correct. And we all we got left is the radios,
Correct.
which I wanted to talk about if anybody else wants to talk about them. I know Rachel was questioning whether or not they're really necessary, and that basically the CERT members tend to be with either a fireman or a police officer during occasions. It's a question of need. They can borrow firemen's radios. It's 12.5 savings to the town. If you want to do it at another time, you can. My whole thing is next year, if you need to raise the taxes, you might need to raise the taxes. I just think it'd be fair to everybody in this room and every resident that's out there in this town, have an opportunity to see when it's all shaken out with their new evaluation, what they're actually going to be paying. Because they won't know until, I know the school board's starting on it tonight, I believe, and the county's pretty much already set, and that's going to be against what people used to have as a smaller appraisal value. That's going to be against your full brand new appraisal value. I know we've had, whatever it was, 1,700 households went up by X hundreds, X thousands. And I know at the same time, we had some that went down. So it would just be good for everybody to see what really happens after it's a complete 1 year reevaluation. Take a snapshot in time. Next year, if the taxes need to go up 5%, 2%, we've been very helpful to the school board in terms of keeping our taxes down for the last 5 years. And the county's been doing whatever they've been doing. So that's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for consideration on, is to give our residents a chance to see what shakes out. And then if things need to be improved on next year in terms of facilities, et cetera, go for it. That's all I'm saying. That's my thing. So the question is, I would ask the members of the council, how does everybody feel about, do we really need to set money aside for CERT radios at this time in consideration of all the other 100 things that we got going on?
I'd rather do it next year.
And could we like maybe approach some businesses in the area or, in some, at one point, a business was offering us a couple, $20,000 to do fireworks, and we said, well, we don't want to do it right now. We didn't really have the money to back up the fireworks, but people, with businesses are so happy to be here, some of these people, they have money to offer, maybe they would donate 12 radios or 6 radios 1 year and 6 radios another year. These are other options. We do have some businesses, we don't have, you're right, we don't have manufacturing or anything like that, but it's another option we could go after.
It's a great option to go after, but I will say, just in the small amount of time that I have been here, there is an amazing outpouring of support that goes into the expenses of the borough here, where they donate tens of thousands of dollars and have since the beginning of the year. So I agree with you, there is a possibility for that, but a lot of these people already are doing these things behind the scenes without recognition, without being asked to do them. So I understand that, but in the same breath, I don't want to go to the same well.
No,
and
no,
say,
no, I don't mean that.
So
No, no,
you're
no.
giving us this money right now for this, you know, behind the scenes and on the books, of course, not behind the scenes, Lorraine. I don't mean to tell the public that, but yes, that's a great idea.
Jennifer,
Yes.
you want to comment on this?
No.
On the radios? Okay.
Oh, about the radios?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it next year for those.
I'm fine with next year.
Yeah, me too.
Rachel?
Can we check in with the fire department? 'Cause that's the one thing I did not get to do. I just, when we continued the meeting after our last council meeting, our department chief at the time had left for the fire department. I wanted to ask them if they had any extra radios on hand.
I did ask him.
Okay,
He reported that he really doesn't, when they go to a fire scene, they can have mutual aid there, and they like to give the radios to people that are actually responding and working the actual fire. Of course, that's for a fire incident. If you're talking about some other incident, perhaps they do have it to line up, but you never know how many of the fire department versus CERT's gonna be involved. So there could be a shortage if that's the case.
What if we cut it in half? From one more half, so we'd be down to half that value.
So 62.
6250. Start.
and I'm sorry, how many, do you guys remember how many radios he said that would fund?
12.
12.
It was like 24 was for the first full
Right.
25, and
Yeah.
then
And we cut it to 12, and he
Mhm.
said they could probably work in pairs with 12, right? Yeah, start with 6. If we really feel that it's a burden and we're anticipating an event, you know, that,
Well,
start
we,
with 6.
we should always be prepared
Mhm.
in my eyes as someone who survived Hurricane Sandy here.
So if everybody agrees to 6250, we can move this thing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. I'm good.
So can go with it, whatever.
And then if we have our consensus then, Lorraine will go ahead and prepare the budget, just a word of warning. When you go to introduce this on Wednesday night, Lorraine will not be here. And I will not be able to make any changes on the fly, so it's just gonna be an up or down vote on that. Won't be able to make changes at that point.
The amounts that you read, they were the reductions or they were the amounts that were going within the line item?
Read them both. I read it to what we're going, so. shall I
Okay,
say-
but you have it written down.
I have
what
it
the
written
line
down,
item
I'll
will be. Okay, so if you can give that to me, I'll email that to Ray, because he does all the magic of putting it into the actual.
Sorry, Ray. Got more work.
Will you be able to
Compared to all
email-
the work that's already put into it,
You can handle it.
I'll make a few more changes.
will you be able to email that to us tomorrow so we can get paper copies of it? I just wanted to answer the court question. The appropriations that were in our 2023 budget, we had costs of $292,390. We had anticipated some revenue. The net was $115,890, the net cost. The amount that we're paying now is $175,000. So that nets to almost the same thing. We have less of a cost in our 2024 budget of a net of $117,390. In 4 short years, that's $500,000. That's a pretty significant decrease.
all right, no, thank you, it's helpful.
Mhm.
So we have that consensus?
Yes.
So I only have one more order of business. I'm going to pass out the information from Phoenix that I got today, which is the search company. So they had gone through the candidates for administrator. They had done their interviews and they grade people. I'm sure people that were here last understand that. They grade people in order of, they give them numerics as to different categories that they have. So I'm gonna pass these out, but I would like to know is next Monday a good day to interview at least 2? There's 4 prospective.
We're gone.
I'm away.
Okay.
Push it to the following week.
You can push it whenever you want to. It doesn't.
Yeah.
What is there a particular night for the company that they prefer?
They're not coming.
Okay.
No, the
Just-
interviewers are
just-
coming. We're doing it.
Okay, but
So
the,
last year we
the-
had.
yeah,
2 years ago,
normally
we
the
had
representative
somebody
of the
there.
company's there to give us a little update at the beginning. before we do
tell us
it.
what we can and can't ask.
There is a cover sheet that goes with this, and they explain all of what they've done and how they've come up to what they've come up with, and then they
Okay.
included all the resumes
Okay,
with all of that. Let me just look for.
Yeah, the next week is fine. with me.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Florida, Key West.
April Fool's Day is fine.
I'm at the most expensive place in the world that week. I'm in Disney.
Oh, the whole week?
Wednesday,
Nicely
on
done.
Sunday.
Where are you staying?
Marriott Grand Vista.
Both.
That's gonna be fun.
That's on the first, Rachel?
I'm sorry?
Yes, and she said she's out the whole week of the first, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, she's away.
When are you back, Rachel?
Can the 8th then? How about
Can you do the
8th?
8th?
The 8th, we come back that evening. Actually,
So you'd be very fresh.
Not on
very
vacation
broke.
with children. Vacation
Three
with
kids
children
in
is not
Disney.
really a vacation, it's just. parents
How
are
about the
different.
10th, the Wednesday, the 10th?
April 10th.
April 10, we can do two. What's a good time for everyone to start?
With a court of honor.
Without looking at the list, Mayor, is there, are they all engaged somewhere else for the most part? Because are they gotta work during the day and then, I mean, normally, we start as early as somebody can get there. If you want to do like 6 o'clock. or
I just
something
meant
like
for council, how early do they, well, I don't know how early everybody here can get here.
that. Well, that, yeah, we've
I wasn't
interviewed,
worried about their schedules, I was
Right.
worried about our schedules.
we've interviewed 3 or 4 tonight. Okay. Out there.
There's 4 perspective that had the highest scores.
So next week is out entirely.
And the week after, too.
Well,
I
because
know
yes,
Monday was not good for you guys.
Dawn, yeah,
around
Dawn
the
and
whole week.
Christine are away.
But not
First.
together.
Right. Different states. States are confusing right now.
And the 8th you get back at night, so the 10th,
Or Tuesday, the 9th or the 10th.
Yeah, any dates after that.
well, the 9th is a recreation meeting,
You can interview an OEM. That's what they've done before.
10th.
10th is fine, right, for everybody?
10th 's fine.
What's a good time to
Yeah.
start for everybody?
As early as you want, I'm available.
Yeah, I'd rather go early than
Yeah.
be up all night.
And we're gonna just interview 2, right? We're gonna do 2 on the
I
10th.
think you said,
Well,
four.
I can, it depends on what time you want to start.
We start at like 5:30. I mean, if we
Yeah,
can do 5
let's get
o'clock,
it
I would think
banging
I
out.
don't think that-
We start at 5:30.
I can.
Ryan, be the only
I
question.
don't think we can, because if it's an administrator coming from the town, they can't leave until 4:30. You wanna do 5? I do 5, that's good.
Let's see how early they could start.
Well, again, there
What
are
job
some
they
that are
gonna cut?
administrators,
that's
if
what-
they
yeah.
have council meetings, those, I mean, I don't know. So let me just see, we can do probably at least 3 if we're meeting at 5. We can probably do 5 or 5:30.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Is that the 10th now?
The 10th.
Yes.
Yeah, 10th
Okay.
Wednesday, the
So-
10th.
I just wanna,
I'm gonna look for April 10th for 5 PM or 5:30 PM. And we'll see how many we can schedule all in the same day.
Okay,
And if we can get all 4, we'll get all 4.
okay.
Do you wanna do it, let me ask that question. I'm sorry, you said you couldn't do the 9th?
no, I can't do that.
Okay. I was gonna say, because if Greg was here, we could always go to the senior center too, but that doesn't matter because you can't make it, okay. Okay, so, that's what I will do. So. So I'd like a motion to just open it up to the public.
I'll
Motion
make-
so made.
Second,
Anyone from the public have a comment?
Can we comment on the budget?
I believe so, right? Yes.
So Rob Bauer,
Rob Bauer.
captain of the ambulance squad, most of you already know me. I just wanted to address some of the comments that were made about the ambulance squad. We have never had a request to open our books in the time that I've been there, which is 12 years. So I don't know where that misinformation came from. I will not call it a lie, but it's misinformation. You also don't understand how we bill. So Jen, I will give you props because when you were the council person, you spent a lot of time with us. I'll give Ryan props for when we were looking at a building. Other than that, not one of you has come to us. Rachel, as being the new person, has actually spent some time talking to us. None of you have. Our two representatives for last year never called, never wrote, never stopped by. We've been there since 1946. Long time. Longer than almost all of us combined together. It would be nice if you actually took an interest. If you come ask, we'll give you whatever you ask for. Our books are open. We are a 501c3. We file our 990s like everybody else. We have an accountant review our books. There's nothing that we're hiding. So that insinuation was also false. Our money is used internally, and it goes right back into the town. We lose approximately $350,000 a year by soft billing. That's money that we give back to the town. So the people that you're trying to protect, we're doing it too. Your hospital networks are hard billing. So Jen, you made the example. So if you have St. Clair's and Atlantic coming in, they're gonna bang your residents and take them to collections. And those poor people that are eating the beans, guess what? They're now out of beans. So when you wanna know how we bill and how we do our business, come ask us. Don't sit behind the desk and just assume. Because our last mayor did a lot of assuming and a lot of storytelling that you guys fell for. So if you want something, I'm here. I've been there 12 years. I've held the president's position twice, captain. I've been the treasurer. My books are open. You want to come see them? Stop by anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions. The dump is it being leased?
To the solar field, for the solar field?
Yes.
Yes.
So you're saying that they're leasing it, but they are taking over all of the liability for the whole dump?
I don't have that specific answer.
Well, that's what Brad said.
I don't know that answer.
That is correct.
You're
It's part of the lease that they maintain what is needed by the state and are responsible for it during the length of their lease, which I think is 25 years.
So any leakage or anything that was there before that, they're responsible for that too? They took over everything? Okay.
My understanding.
And you don't do the testing, you do the testing.
Is it in writing?
Well, we'll pull it. If
Okay.
it's, let me just say this, Mara, if it's different, I will let you know. If it's exactly what Brad said, don't worry about it.
It's just uncommon. The obligation, there was a mention there that we have an obligation to the judge. Why? And how much?
The judge signed a contract, so at the beginning of the year, when he gets to sign his contract and he's appointed at the beginning of the year, he has no idea that there was a possibility to outsource court. So unfortunately, his contract is a signed contract and you unfortunately
Well,
legally
that's
couldn't get out.
interesting, because I asked for his signed contract from our clerk, and I was told he didn't have a contract. That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I'm sorry, but he's hired by resolution, so it's possible he had an original contract that was signed and it's just being renewed through a resolution, but I will get you an answer.
Okay, and did we budget the $26,000 in raises that were given out at the end of last year to employees?
I believe all salary increases, possible increases have been justified in the 2024 budget.
Okay. And did they inform the public that the last budget meeting was edited? That everybody was blacked out when they put it on YouTube?
I can't answer on that. I didn't do anything with the.
Well, if you're gonna do that, then you should probably tell them it was edited.
Who posts it?
The borough does.
So the borough blacked everybody out. And then the second time, they took the budget out completely, the budget part of the meeting, and then they put it back in again. So are we paying somebody to do this?
I would have to get you an answer. I don't have
That's
an
okay.
answer. I'm not familiar.
And,
with it.
will Wellness Center be opening its books too?
Well, when the center is part of the borough.
Okay, because we've asked how many people are using it or whatever, we've never gotten an answer.
No, I understand, but
Thank
wellness
you.
center is definitely protected by the borough.
Thank you.
Frank Ferrugia, 69 Elba Avenue. I apologize for my voice. Resident of Apacon for 55 years. I just had a question about the grants, and I know I work retired from public service, electric and gas. JCP&L, I guess, has grants for the lighting, the street lighting. So maybe you want to look into that. Maybe they'll give you some funding for, replacing for the street lighting. The other thing I was going to mention too is that I guess we have an affiliation now with Tom Keene.
Yes,
Can he give us any insight into available grants or anything like that?
Yes.
Since he's our representative, I mean, he should know if there's any money available.
absolutely. Actually, I got an email from their office today and we're meeting during the week, this week, for possibility of 2 projects. with
Yeah, he
his
should be able
office.
to help us. And the other thing I wanted to ask too is I know the federal agencies, I'm on a committee with St. Jude's Church, and we applied for a FEMA grant. And there's a lot of money out there.
There is,
And we got the money. We got $150,000 for,
for security.
yeah,
It's fabulous.
2 years now. So
Fabulous.
$300,000 to secure the church and make it, and working with the town police and everything, and make it a lot secure. I could go into detail later, but the money's really helped. The money's really helped, and I know there's a lot of FEMA money available if we just take the time, and Department of DHS has some money too. And if you fill out the paperwork, it's a matter of your need and where you are in line,
Mhm.
whether you're granted it or not and stuff. And so this is the second year that we got the grant from FEMA for St. Jude's Church. So
No, very good.
yeah, and that may help, our budget.
No,
situation.
great suggestion.
And then the last thing I want to mention is, since I was on the school board and was board president, I know, anytime there's an increase, they're going to hold it against the town. So, maybe we can do, hey, Ray. Maybe we can do, or, do some public message or stuff, and tell them that we're in this situation, because the state cut the funding.
Mhm.
And it's not, it's not anything that the town did or the, Board of Education and stuff like that. So that can quash, that, and, and last but not least, I want to thank you guys for all your time and effort. I know how much time you put into it, and, it's really a love of labor, for the town and what you're doing. And I want to thank you for it.
Thank you. Thank you. I will say that with the Board of Education though, Frank, we are, I know Greg has had a conversation with the superintendent. I know I'm meeting with the superintendent in the next few weeks so that we can possibly prepare for the future going in one direction when it comes to these tax increases and the needs and the wants and the fairness.
It might be a good idea to have him come to the meeting too.
He's going
Yeah,
to,
and he could present, what the situation is.
yes, yes,
Because your town's only good as your school district,
right,
you guys know that.
yes. Thank you though.
Thank you.
Marie? Would you also include when you answer who edited it and why?
I will definitely check into it and get
Thank
you
you.
all that I can get you. Anyone else from the public? Motion to bring it back?
I'll make it
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
second.